What it do, YouTube? It's your boy Ty Scooty back with another reaction video, and this time it's going to be another Law & Crime Network video. Dad assaulted daughter and fathered children for more than a decade. Oh my gosh. Obviously, fuck, I hope nothing but the worst for this dude.
And is facing more than 150 charges after police say he sexually assaulted his own daughter for more than a decade, fathering multiple children with her. She's now opened up about her struggle on social media. She is casting blame on who she says is responsible, as he now faces lifetimes behind bars. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law & Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. A father, which if these allegations are true, maybe we use loosely, a father is being held in jail pending trial in Raleigh County, West Virginia, for allegedly sexually assaulting his own daughter for 12 years, starting when she was only 9 years old. Yeah. And by the way, in a horrific, disgusting, disturbing twist, the two now have 3 children together. To talk about this, let me bring back on to Sidebar Marion Bracha, practice professor of law, former child abuse, sex crimes prosecutor. So Marion, this is pretty disgusting. This is beyond disturbing. Are incest cases more common than we might realize, unfortunately?
Well, the cases might not be very common because, unfortunately, when there is abuse within a family, oftentimes it will go unreported, undocumented, unprosecuted. So the cases themselves probably aren't as frequent as the actual occurrence of the crime is. But it certainly happens, as we can see in this case.
By the way, so these are allegations, right? He's innocent until proven guilty. I have to say that. I have to remind myself of that, given what he's charged with, and we will talk about the charges, what the allegations are. How on earth, in a trial, an incest trial, right? If this happens, when it happens, if they happen in general, how do you get a fair and impartial jury?
I think that most defense attorneys would ask the same question. And this is probably a case where because there are offspring involved, because this alleged sexual relationship resulted in the birth of 3 children, 3 offspring. This is actually a case that can be proved on the science. It can be proved based on blood tests, DNA results, birth records, other vital records. And so this is probably a case where the defense would seek to minimize or seek to challenge the science or the results of DNA testing or the validity of the records that are introduced. But you're right, this isn't a case where there is an affirmative defense saying, sure, I did it, but
I remember that movie. I think there's been multiple movies like remade over that. But the amount of times that you hear about shit like this happening is obviously way too many. But it's disturbing and disgusting as fuck. And it's just like I'm ready for her to call out everyone who didn't help her, though. You know what I mean? That's what I'm ready for.
Here's why, and this is why I shouldn't be convicted. There would really have to be a challenge to the proof elements that the prosecution would present.
So this is the suspect. This is the suspect in this case, 44-year-old Kenneth Cook. He is reportedly facing 152 charges right now. We had a felony complaint that was first filed against him in December of 2024. People magazine reports that one of the children was found suffering from neglect in August, which seems to have maybe been the jumping off point for an investigation. He was charged with sexual abuse, sexual assault, child neglect, and 3 counts of incest. And then a warrant was issued for his arrest. He wasn't taken into custody until March. And since then, he has been indicted. Now faces 149 total counts of incest, plus sexual assault, sexual abuse, child neglect, so 152 charges in total. Marion, is this typical? I've covered cases like this before where you have an alleged victim or victims describe repeated acts, repeated instances of sexual abuse, and yet they're not charged. The defendant's not charged for every one of those individual.
I'm gonna be honest, I still, this is one of those points where it's like 152 is crazy, but it still doesn't even sound crazy enough for what he did. You know, like
individual acts. This feels different. Is it typical to charge someone like this?
Well, I can't speak to what is typical because that really
Okay.
does vary jurisdiction to jurisdiction and state by state. In this particular jurisdiction in West Virginia, whoever the charging authority was, whether it's the state attorney or the district attorney or the local police department, it would be
I got you,
up
Bohadaway.
to them. It would be within their purview to determine how many charges to attach. So with a defendant who's
Actually, go if you can go and find the video. First, if it's a video about like actual stuff happening, it might have to be one of those ones that we watch on Kick. But if you have the video, just send the YouTube link in the Discord, and we'll have all those added to the watch later.
charged with this many counts of incest, I think what we can glean from that is that the charging authority is saying in these 149 instances, this defendant allegedly engaged in sexual conduct, sexual contact with an offspring, with a child of his own who was his daughter. And so that number, that figure may have come about pursuant to their investigation, pursuant to their interviews with the complaining witness, with the daughter in this case. So it really is up to the charging authority whether they attach one charge per instance over a course of conduct over a number of years, or whether they attach just one charge to reflect an ongoing course of conduct.
Hey, so look, I know you guys might be interested in true crime and legal stories, but a little side note here. Is anybody also...
I updated the link. If you go to the link in bio, it'll be my link tree. It'll be the first one, the Made in Heaven server. At first, for a while, it hasn't been working, and I wasn't knowing why. I think it was because I was trying to do it through the PC, because whenever I uploaded it through my phone, it showed that no link was ever put in there. You know what I mean? So it was like it was clicking on a blank link or clicking on a blank button. So now the link is associated with that button. All you got to do is swipe over, boom, 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 press on it, and it'll take you, and all you got to say is accept the invite.
in a business of some kind? If so, let me tell you real quick about Odoo, our sponsor. Odoo is man. Odoo number odoo.com/sidebar inventory. Is there a strength in numbers? The prosecution throwing out more of these charges, more of these alleged incidents, or it could be you wonder if there's so many charges and if there's a weakness with respect to a few, does that jeopardize the whole case? I imagine the way that they try to prove 149 episodes is to have the victim, in this case, testify about each one of them, which just to me sounds like such a daunting, grueling task for her to describe this in detail on the stand. Is there a strength in numbers, or could it hurt the prosecution when you have so many charges?
No, I think you've perfectly crystallized the strength and weaknesses of charging like this, attaching.
Nah, y'all are good, because I understand. I didn't know shit about Discord. Like, the only reason why I got it is because someone told me, Pickle. Shout out Pickle Nick, bro. Because he made the Discord for me. He said it'd be easier to have everyone into the Discord. So then we have, like, all these different categories of just different shit in there. But yeah, it's pretty broken down once you look at it.
One particular count to each instance of the offense. I think that perhaps the thought process of attaching one charge per instance is to be able to aggregate the sentence. So if the statutory maximum penalty or sentence on one charge of incest is, say, 20 years, if the defendant is convicted of more than one count of incest, he can be sentenced to consecutive periods of imprisonment. So it could be 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus however many charges he's found guilty of. So I think that is the thought process in terms of charging that many counts. But realistically, when it comes to trial, would you have a complainant on the stand testifying to 149 different instances? Probably not. I haven't seen that, but I think there is something being communicated there by the prosecution and by the charging authority that there is enough evidence to proceed to trial if they wanted to, and if they wanted to present testimony and evidence on those 149 different counts, they could.
And by the way, if someone's convicted of that, every charge, would a judge run every sentence concurrently or consecutively? Because consecutively, you're looking at what? The rest of your life in prison.
Right. And again, that would be up to the sentencing judge. That would be something that the prosecution could ask for statutory maximum consecutive sentences. So 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20 that I described before, or they could run concurrently, which means that all the sentences on the individual charges, if the defendant is convicted, would run at the same time.
What the fuck? If they have all 152 charges run at the same time, oh my gosh, that better not be the case, because he should be in for each and every single charge. This is so fucking stupid.
Now, we got our hands on this indictment. It's 18 pages long, and it lists out every single one of those 152 charges. For example, count one is third-degree sexual assault of the victim, identified in the indictment as AT, and this is in connection with an alleged incident when she was 14 years old. Count two, sexual abuse by parent, guardian, custodian, or person in a position of trust, also connected to when she was 14 years old. By the way, the fact that they have to have a charge like this is just disgusting in and of itself, but obviously things like this happen. Then you got counts 3 through 151. Those are the incest charges. And then count 152 is gross child neglect creating substantial risk of serious bodily injury or death. That last count is apparently in connection with one of Cook's youngest children, a 1-year-old, identified only as KC, although investigators indicated that all 3 children, now ages 5, 3, and 1, according to outlet Channel 2 Now, they were found to be suffering from neglect. Marion, how do you prove neglect of someone so young?
Well, again, I think that is something that's provable via the records, via hospital records, medical records, any observations of investigators or social workers or caregivers of the child at the time that the child was discovered or cared for. So that is certainly something that would have to be proven by eyewitness testimony and by the condition of the child as memorialized and as documented in the records for their treatment.
What's a possible defense for Cook?
The only 2 possible defenses that I can
Straight
foresee
down,
would
one
be
way.
that there is no consanguineous relationship between him and the complainant, meaning that his defense might be that the complaining witness, AT, is not a biological relative of his, is not a blood relative of his. Maybe he could claim that she's a stepchild or an otherwise family relation, but they are not descended from the same ancestor. That's really the definition of incest. Now, of course, a very simple blood test and paternity test might undermine that defense if that were something that he wanted to put forward. That would be one defense. The other defense is something we alluded to earlier, which would be that any of the science, any of the paternity tests or blood tests that the prosecution would seek to introduce would be tainted or would be unreliable expert testimony, and that would come down to a judge's determination as to whether the jury would be permitted to hear.
And if all these little like weird defenses are being said and it doesn't sound like it makes sense, it's because it doesn't. Like, that won't ever come to term, is what she's initially saying. No one's gonna hear that shit out and be like, oh yeah, he's innocent. No, he's fucked. He's fucked.
From those experts and hear the results of that testing. To be perfectly honest, those are really the only 2 defenses I can think of, unless, of course, there are inconclusive results from the paternity test between the complainant's offspring, AT's 3 children, and this defendant. If there is no connection there, then the defense is basically, unfortunately, a he said, she said. The complainant is saying this abuse happened, the defendant is saying it didn't, and there is no forensic evidence, there's no scientific evidence to prove that this sexual contact actually existed. Of course, if these 3 children are his children, if they are his descended offspring, then of course that defense also goes out the window.
Just to be clear about something, and I know this is disgusting, but I have to ask it nonetheless. To be clear, even if she was 18 years old, consent is not a defense to incest, right?
Correct. It's not a consent. It is not a defense to incest. We have public policy and public health reasons behind criminalizing incest and going back historically, the public health concern for incest was the prevalence of genetic disorders. If people who are descended again from the same ancestor and come from the same bloodline are reproducing, there is a higher likelihood of recessive genes coming to the fore, and that could lead to lines of genetic disorders. And so there is a public health concern for it first and foremost, even if the sexual contact were between two consenting adults who are from the same bloodline. But of course, where we see incest most, at least from a prosecutor's perspective, is when there is an adult perpetrator against a child victim.
Yeah. Now, Cook's daughter, who's now in her 20s, has actually publicly identified herself as Alexandria Thomas on social media. And as we went through the indictment, we realized something. Each of those incest charges is connected to a 1-month period of her life, starting when she was only 9 years old. So there are 12 charges for every year between the ages of 9 and 20, and then 6 months worth when the victim was 21. The most recent abuse charge is from July of 2024. Now, again, we talked about the idea of there is no defense to that, the incest, the consent. But here's the important part. Alexandra posted about her experience on her Facebook page, and this is what she wrote, quote, "Since court has now ended, I'm going to speak my part on the monster most of y'all keep messaging me about. I've reported him multiple times since I was 9 years old, but my grandmother worked hand in hand with CPS. Nobody believed me. She made them all think I was lying about it. When my grandpa found out what was happening, he didn't even look surprised. The last time I told a guidance counselor what was happening and CPS was called, my grandma had it swept under the rug, and my dad told me if I ever told again, he knew ways to get me erased." Okay.
And you know, oh my God. Death penalty for them all. Death penalty for the grandma too. Death penalty for the grandma, the grandpa. Because you mean to tell me you knew that your granddaughter was getting assaulted to this degree since she was 9 years old, and y'all did more. There's a lot of people that see it and then don't say anything about it. You avidly participated in it. You covered it up to CPS. And you know what? That just makes you think on how many other people are in CPS that do this shit. Sad. It's sad. It's a sad fact and truth behind it. How many of these CPS workers are secretly trafficking kids? Am I crazy to say that? I could be. But how far off is it after hearing shit like this? You know what I mean? All these kids that can't go nowhere, can't be, and that's what I'm saying. It starts with the fucking parents. It starts with the parents. Hey, if I go missing, I'm saying this, bro, it starts with the parents. The parents can't fucking take care of their kids and let those kids get into the wrong hands of a CPS worker that's onto that shit. That kid is not going into the system. Going out the country is where they're going. That, you know what I'm saying? Or fuck going out the country. Yeah, we ain't, nah. We just gonna do this, bro.
Aaron, we don't know if this is all true. If this is true, it's highly disturbing. First of all, generally speaking, if these allegations are true, is that something you've heard before? I think I just covered a case recently where there was an allegation where a parent came forward and said, don't bring to light this. I think it was a stepmother accused of having sexual relations with her stepson, and the stepson was allegedly told by family members, don't say anything, don't report her. Is this something that happens?
Constantly, Jesse, constantly. This is a terrible.
You know what it is though too? It's they would rather keep the pride. They would rather keep the pride of the family and have that little girl be assaulted all her life than be put out and looked at as if they were the reason this happened. Which it only doubles down with how y'all are acting, because y'all are the reason that happened. If y'all would have just came out and told them like, oh, oh shit, damn. Hold on. Can y'all still hear me? My camera froze. You be secretly recording folks with your glasses, G? Never, Meech. Matter of fact, I made a video on that. I don't even have any content. I need to start getting that out for y'all. Fuck. Hold on, I gotta unplug my camera. They heard me talking my shit and they said, freeze that nigga's cameras. Nah, that ain't right. We've talked about that too. I don't even know. I don't remember. I think no. I had a video. I had a video that got taken down because I was talking about this. It was have y'all heard, bro, what the fuck? Okay, y'all can still hear me. I think the camera's loading. But have y'all heard? I think it was in Atlanta. It was in Atlanta or whatever. This nigga was a photographer. And he had the meta glasses. And he like you know what I'm saying? Have y'all heard of that? It was a big case because he would do nude photo shoots. No, yeah. It was a man. Real talk, how much were those? Y'all, bro, see, that's why y'all gotta go tap in with the vlog, bro. Hey, in the new IRL that I explained it, but I'll say it real quick for y'all. So I used to have, hold on, shit. Let me go get these other glasses real quick. Cause I broke my other prescription ones, or I lost them. I don't even know what the other ones were, but. So I had these hoes first. I didn't even know I was really blind and needed glasses until like my senior year of high school. You know, so that's whenever I started getting this shit. Regardless, these hoes are dusty. I ain't worn these in a minute. But like these are my old sunglasses that I don't even really wear since these are transition lenses right here. But these, I had a pair like them that were just like clear lenses for my prescription. But they would keep getting molded. I said molded. I'd keep, you know, bending them a little bit. So I was like, fuck that. I want to go find some new frames. So I went to first Stanton Optical and just looked around. I didn't find any frames I like. And then I went into Walmart one day. And y'all know how Walmart has those Ray-Ban frames? I was looking, I was like, oh shit. YouTube, skip like 20, 30 seconds. I'm gonna wrap this up though. So I fucked with the Ray-Ban frames. But the thing is, they were fucking hella. They were like 150, 200. And that wasn't even plus the lenses. So I was like, yeah, I'm not doing all that. And then I walked around in the mall and I saw Sunglasses Hut. And Sunglasses Hut was selling the metas. And it's the first time I seen the metas in person. You know, I'd seen it online all the time. And I always thought they were cool. But obviously, you know, I ain't really look at it until I'd seen it. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ask them about it. And I found out that the frames itself, these come with lenses that aren't prescribed. Well, you can buy them prescribed online, or you can get the base glasses and then add your lenses to it. But basically, I think it was damn near the same as the frames would have been if I would have just got the frames at Walmart. Not plus however much I would have had to add on to for my my prescriptions. So that's why I went ahead and got these, because also that's what I'm saying. I don't even record with these. I need to, but I just forget to. It's like one of those things, like by the time I even think about it, I forget it, you know. But I listen to music out these all the fucking time because they're 10 times better than AirPods. Way more comfortable too. YouTube, welcome back, and let's get into it. My fault, y'all.
Situation that I have heard far too many times in my career.
I never answered the question. My fault. They were like 320, or maybe it was between. There's like two different styles. You can get like dark matte or the glossy type. Basically, it's not going to be anything more than 350 though. If you add prescription depending on how much it is, it's just
where,
cool. Whatever that.
Abuse of a child, in particular, sexual abuse of a child, is swept under the rug and is something that the family wants to deal with internally, or the family doesn't want to publicize.
Yeah, Meech, them niggas wildin'.
Certainly a concern for, you know, public shame and other cultural considerations, but this is unfortunately not something that is new to hear.
If these allegations are true, and these are just allegations, what liability could grandparents face here? Could the grandparents face here?
So there is a charge that you mentioned in Pennsylvania, where I live and practice. We refer to it as EWOC, endangering the welfare of a child. And that, I believe, is the second charge that attaches to Cook's indictment under the West Virginia terminology and the West Virginia statutory code. So if these grandparents had any kind of supervisory relationship with the child, if they had any kind of caregiving responsibilities over her when she was a child, they could potentially face criminal charges for endangering her welfare by not by allowing her to remain in this abusive setting, in this abusive environment, and prolonging the abuse for almost the entirety of her childhood.
What about the CPS? If they were alerted, didn't do more, what do you think? Do they face any kind of
Yeah,
liability?
I looked into that too, Jesse. That would be something called a Monell claim, and that's where a private citizen can sue the government for failure to protect their due process rights, their due process to life, essentially. And that might be
I
hard
haven't
to
heard of
prove.
that.
It might be a negligence claim. It might be that they would bring a charge against
Is that like
one
River?
particular social worker or one particular caseworker for having dropped the proverbial ball, so to speak. But to bring a claim against the entire social services department might be a challenge, because the plaintiff, if this were a civil case, would have to prove that there was a culture or a policy or practice in place of depriving people in AT's position of their due process rights. So it is certainly something that I'm sure a very skilled civil litigator would look at. I think it would be a challenge to bring a 1983 Monell claim, but it is something that's worth looking into.
Based on these allegations in the Facebook post. And let's go back to Alexandra's Facebook post. It says, quote, "My youngest was born with health issues and stayed in the hospital for the first week of his life, but wasn't allowed to go to the doctors afterward because he was scared of the truth of what he had done leaking out. I was nursing a sick baby on my own who desperately needed medical attention."
Wow.
Again, Marion, really disturbing allegations. What do you make of her posting this publicly for the world to know?
Well, I mean, it would be a foreshadowing. It would be a preview, I would anticipate, of testimony that she would give, or perhaps testimony that she's already given, but before an indicting grand jury. This would be the sum and substance of her testimony to substantiate the neglect charge for the youngest child. I think it also might perhaps go to explain some of the complainant's conduct over the past 5 years or so. She was still under the pressure. She was still under the mental forcible compulsion of her father. And because of that, her hands were even tied insofar as caring for her youngest. So if there were ever a question about her neglect of the child, or her lack of care or provision of medical care or support for the child, I think this is serving as an explanation for how the child got to be in such poor condition.
And just to be clear, the idea of this happening allegedly for 12 years, 3 children are born out of this. She's so young. How on earth has this been allowed to go on? How on earth was he not arrested, or was this really further investigated? I think people are going to look at this story and say, I don't understand it. I don't get why we're talking about it now and not years ago.
I completely agree with you. And I think that's why we need to pay a lot of attention when children tell us that there is something amiss in their lives, when they are concerned or when they are uncomfortable about something. It really does, to overuse the phrase, but it really does take a village. And so if there are teachers, social workers, guidance counselors, caseworkers, grandparents, neighbors, other people in the children's lives who are seeing that there is something amiss, then it really is the responsibility of all of us to look out for the children in our communities and the children who might be exposed to this great risk.
Now, in terms of Cook, the defendant, he's been locked up in Raleigh County Jail in a $500,000 bond since March. He's due back in court this month. I also was thinking, the fact that he's charged with so many crimes, is that leverage for him to work out a deal? They don't want to have Alexandra Thomas take the stand. They don't want to have her relive all of these alleged incidents, right? So if you charge him with 152 crimes, is there leverage to drop some, work something out? I can understand why prosecutors would not want this to go to trial.
Honestly, nigga, why would you even work on a way to see? This is the issue, bruh. 152 crimes. If you were actually trying to find a way to dumb it down, then you see him walking out of prison at some point in his life. That nigga's what, 60, 70? Nah, hold on. Yeah, let's say on the lower end, maybe like 55. You mean to tell me all he fucking did and you think he might get less than 55 years? Like, what the fuck? They shouldn't have gave him any bond. Yeah, no, he didn't deserve a bond. Shoot house robberies, gas, thing, drug dealing. What the fuck? Yeah, no, I need to, hold on. I'm gonna need to stay tapped into that. If you're in the Discord, drop that link. Or if not, I'll go look at that shit in just a little bit.
Absolutely, and I think that they would have the complainant, that they would have Alexander Thomas's best interest and her concerns
what's good, bro?
front and foremost in their minds when considering whether to extend an offer for the defendant to plead not guilty and to pursue some non-trial disposition. So that is certainly leverage. I will say, however, whether there's 152 counts or 1 or 2 counts attached to a criminal complaint, there is always room for a conversation to be had about the defendant accepting responsibility or entering into some other non-trial disposition to save the time and the resources and certainly the trauma of this case going to trial.
Well, I'll tell you, this is one of the more disgusting, nauseating cases I've covered in quite some time. We'll keep a careful eye on it. We'll see how it progresses. As I said, his case is going to continue through the court system, and if these allegations are true, I don't even know if the answer is better late than never that he's finally getting arrested. But again, he's entitled to a defense. We shall see where it goes. Professor Bracha, thank you so much. Great seeing you. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, everybody. That's all we have for you right now here on.
I wonder if he's been charged too. Cause like, I get it. Oh, everyone gets a due process of law in court. Yo, that's why, fuck it. Once I get to that point, imagine me in like 2070 or some shit. What the fuck? What's this year? 2025. How old you gotta be to be president again? I think they might be able to change the rules for me. We gonna keep grinding, bro. But hey, I'm gonna be president. I'm actually gonna lead this shit. 35. Fuck it. Give me that year, bro. I'll actually start, cause I get it. You get your due process in court, but the second I hear this shit, all I need is DNA and you're locked up, nigga. I don't care. Oh, but I need trial. Fuck your trial, nigga. I get it. Everyone gets a fair chance, but why should you get the fair chance whenever your fuck ass parents and even some of the CPS workers that were covering that shit knew about this shit? Y'all fucking knew. And you even put your son, which is also your grandson's, life at danger because you didn't want to get caught. You been had time to be guilty, nigga. You say goodbye. Say goodbye. I don't care. All right, well, YouTube, if you enjoyed that vid and want to watch more reactions like it, you already know what to do. Or if you want to just go watch Law and Crime, because I know this one was an extra yap session, so I apologize about that. Y'all stay safe. I'll see y'all later. Peace.